I came across this article on REITs and retirement. Let me pull it up for you to see. While REITs are struggling, they can still be sound investments for retirees. Unfortunately, this is a subscriber-only article. I can't see the details. So what I'll be doing is I'll make it into my own interpretation. Should you, as a retiree, invest into REITs for retirement income or not? Not just that, for today, you'll be also hearing why REITs are potentially attractive. How do they compare against investing into residential property? And last but not least, how to choose a REIT to be inside your own retirement income portfolio. So if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Let's start with the point of why REITs can be attractive. Firstly, REITs, you can just buy it off an exchange and you don't need to manage any property or do any financing headaches. There's also no need to maintain the property and get it cleaned up. And also, I haven't mentioned, you don't need to manage tenants, which is itself a big headache. REITs potentially can provide you consistent dividends from rent income, and not just that, sometimes REIT managers also trade properties when values have appreciated. Recently, Fraser Singapore has actually sold a property in Changi at a gain. So if you're not familiar with REITs, let me simplify it for you first. REITs actually is a structure whereby you own a portfolio of real estate. Not just one, not just two. Usually there can be 50 or 100 properties within a REIT itself. The REIT manager will collect rent. And after all the expenses, 90% of taxable income must be given back to you as a shareholder. So unlike other shares whereby it's up to the board to decide how much they want to declare, for a REIT, at least 90% of taxable income each year must be given to you as a REIT shareholder. Currently, there are more than 40 REITs in Singapore, and the share price performance of any REIT is tied to the health of the property market that they are in, which can be volatile. Some of them own shopping malls, some of them own offices, some of them own hospitals, and some of them own hotels. These properties can be in Singapore, China, Indonesia, US, Europe, you name it. But as of now, 90% of all REITs properties are all overseas already. Singapore market is just simply too small. So to understand the REIT share price trend, let's use S-reits Leaders Index. What can we realize? Currently, it has been trending down for years, correct? COVID, there was a plunge because there's no rent income. People got scared. It recovered, but then with interest rates going up, REITs have actually seen a bear market for the last 2-3 years. Currently, the index is even below 2019 level. On the other hand, let's look at residential private properties. You would see that the index has climbed over the last 5 years from 150 points to 194 points. That's why in whatever little I can read from article, the author feels that he has made a silly move. If he had bought a private property under an immediate family member who has yet to own, just to avoid ABSD, his family would be a lot happier financially, simply because private home prices have risen 7.5%, 18.9%, and 27.4% over the last 1, 2, and 3 year time frames. How can it be? They are all properties, correct? And I guess I should address why REITs have done badly in general. Interest rate increment, yes, it's part of the reason. But what's often neglected is that the bigger reason for the decline in REITs prices have been the poor performance of overseas properties. Rent income has been dropping, vacancy rates have been climbing. That is very unlike Singapore residential property where rent is climbing and vacancy level is very low at this current phase. Let's use an example which is Manulife US REIT. This REIT has actually seen a 90% decline in 1 year. You've heard it correct, 90% decline. I've actually done a tutorial before, back in 1st of November 2022, saying big sale, 10% dividend yield, should you buy? I'm happy that I produced that because the conclusion was clearly, don't be seduced by the dividend yield. I was in fact warning about possible problems in that particular video, and fast forward 1 year time, we realized that that was a good call. At this moment, let me try to summarize them side by side. Residential property versus REIT. The first difference, stories of profits. For residential property, I guess we've all heard of many stories. Neighbors, uncles, aunties, you name it, we have all heard of it. People who have made monies in property. Even my mom's own home has appreciated in value. What about for REIT? you have heard probably of less success stories. What about for losses? For residential property, it's very seldom, but there are actually losses. On the other hand, for REIT, there are even stories of catastrophic losses, such as the one which I mentioned, Manulife US REIT. Price stability, there is a difference also. Residential properties, they trend very slowly over multi-year periods, whereas for REITs, the share price can be volatile. The fourth difference is the feeling of owning it. A residential property is very nice to own. It's tangible. See, touch, feel. You name the project, people can see it with their eyes. Whereas for REIT, it's just a title of ownership, just like any stock, and it's intangible. So with these four differences, it's quite easy to feel that owning a residential property would feel a lot more superior than buying a REIT for retirement. But hey, we are here today to talk about retirement income, correct? Not just what makes you feel better. So let's drill down next to segments where they are roughly the same. In terms of interest costs, actually when interest rates go up, both will actually suffer. That is not mentioned enough. Owners of residential property are now seeing refinancing rate at 3, 4 or even 5% on their mortgage loan rate. On the other hand, for REITs, I think that's mentioned well enough already. There are actually reports that suggest that REITs tend to outperform in high inflation periods actually, simply because in a healthy environment, rent income can climb faster than interest costs. But this moment is a special one, whereby interest costs has skyrocketed in an unprecedented manner. While on the other hand, many industries are still recovering from COVID-19. What about for ongoing costs? When you own a residential property and rent it out, there are actually replacement costs that you need to take care of. A fresh coat of paint to entice a new tenant in, a replacement of refrigerator, a replacement of air condition. These are things that are capital losses when you are a residential property owner. On the other hand, for REIT, there are actually ongoing costs also, because REITs, they distribute 90% of taxable income to you, correct? Which means they're only left with very, very little. And when they see an investment opportunity to expand, they would need new capital from you, and they usually raise it via rights. So this point for retirees, again, is a bit stickier. If for myself, not too bad, I have active income. So paying off that few hundred or few thousand for REITs rights, not a problem at all. But if you are a retiree, do set aside some war chest cash, especially if you like to participate in a REITs rights issue. So take note of that. Then the third similarity is actually in agent costs. We all know residential properties, if you are not good at negotiating rent yourself, marketing yourself, you do need to hire a qualified agent. What about REIT managers? They do charge a cost actually. They are sometimes paid in share units, and this eats into your dividends per unit eventually. So these are three things that are similar. Let's move on to points where REITs are actually superior, especially if you are looking for retirement income. For residential property, you realize that in terms of taxes, you have two to factor in. Firstly, personal income taxes. If you are a retiree, you don't have much personal income, not a problem. But if you're still working it out, then yes, it adds on further and brings you to a higher tax bracket. The second is property tax. I'm not too sure if you know, but if you own a residential property that is rented out, the property tax calculation is a lot higher. What about for REITs? It's actually tax-free because in Singapore, we practice a one-tier tax. The dividend income that you receive, you do not need to declare for personal income taxes. The second key advantage of REITs is that it's a lot easier to acquire and average in slowly. When you buy a residential property, 1.5 million, 2 million, it's a big commitment upfront. What if you get a timing wrong in terms of the cycle, or you buy and you have regrets? The exit is also very painful. For REITs, it's very simple. You can buy gradually, like what I've done with my capital after selling off my HDB flat. I actually average in pieces into Mapletree Industrial Trust and Mapletree Pan Asia Commercial Trust. This lowers my overall timing risk and gives me time to build my portfolio correctly. The third difference is transaction costs. With REITs, it's actually very low. You kind of know that already. Whereas for residential property, you would realize that the buyer stamp duty itself is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars easily. That's not even factoring ABSD, which is additional buyer stamp duty, and the current rate of 20% is just crazy in my opinion. The fourth key benefit of REIT is actually it's easy to sell when you want to liquidate. This is unlike residential property. There are so many stories of asset-rich retiree couples who don't dare to monetize their assets and downgrade. I understand downgrading is hard. You're living in a new place, there's a lot of moving hassle. not really suitable for someone who's old. The cash poor and asset rich problem really comes in for a retiree who has poured too much of wealth into residential real estate. This last point is the key reason why I believe REITs have a big role in your retirement portfolio, because it allows you dividend income, and when you need to cash out portions for consumption, you can easily do so with a click of a button. Let me pull up this entire table for you to take a screenshot if it's helpful, and as always, if you have benefited, smash the like button. And I also like to invite you to the upcoming JOSH TAN Finance Summit, whereby I would like to answer your questions on retirement planning in a live event. Not just that, I'll be covering on REITs as a special topic, something which I've done in last year's summit for 50 packs. So if you'd like to come down and meet up, do look for links below. I have 2 dates for this year, and sign up quickly because tickets are moving fast. Since you start me right at the very end, let me share with you more value with a big rounding point. When you approach owning REITs in your retirement income portfolio, I would suggest to not put everything in one basket. Quite simple. For Singapore banks, it's a bit different. You can just buy DBS and don't buy OCBC or UOB because they roughly trend the same anyway, and a lot of business is still based in Singapore. They are in the same industry. But for REITs, as I mentioned, you can be in office buildings, you can be in malls, you can be in hotels or even hospitals. So the industry climate is very different. The supply-demand is also very different. And last but not least, their overseas exposure is also different. That is why I would suggest, instead of buying one REIT, you might as well buy one fund. You can either look for SIFE REIT Plus, which tracks IH Leaders Index, or you can directly buy an ETF, which is CSOP IH Leaders ETF. Both of this will help you diversify properly, and as and when a REIT does well and increases in market value, you would see it climbing naturally in terms of allocation. If you don't really like to buy a portfolio, then the other way is to buy the big 5 REITs in Singapore. They are, firstly, CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust, CICT. Second, CapitaLand Ascendas REIT. Third, Mapletree Logistics REIT. Fourth, Mapletree Pan Asia Commercial Trust. And fifth, Mapletree Industrial Trust. By this big 5, you realize that your total index weight is already more than 50%, which means you get diversification and you get the best REITs in Singapore. You would realize the sponsors are either CapitaLand or Mapletree, and these are strong sponsors backed by Temasek. So again, this is a very credible alternative. Buy the big 5 and sleep well on it. Thank you for watching right at the very end, and as always, look out for the JOSH TAN Finance Summit. Seats are selling well. Look for links below to grab your tickets today. I'll see you in the next future video, and let me introduce you to this previous tutorial I've done, which is why I mentioned Manulife US REIT. Check that out. I think it has aged very well. Or if you've seen that already, check out this, which is Capo DC REIT, a REIT that I've recently bought and right now is doing pretty well. So if you haven't seen either of these, let me introduce you there, and I'll see you there too. Take care as always. Goodbye.